During the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, many people lost their businesses, while others leaned on the government for billions of dollars in cash to stay afloat. Now, 2.5 years later, we've learned more than 600 businesses here in Seattle received PPP forgiven loans, costing taxpayers more than $1 billion. KOMO's Preston Phillips caught up with the group crunching the data.
So I'm here with Adam Andrzejewski with OpenTheBooks.com. Adam, thanks for talking with me today. So let's set this up for our viewers. March 2020, Congress creates the Paycheck Protection Program to provide COVID relief to thousands of businesses across the country. Looking back, was this the right way to go about this? It seems like in some instances, businesses were just given a blank check.
Well, Preston, during that period, up to 30 million Americans lost their jobs. So there was real pain on Main Street. And Congress quickly realized that they would have to compensate business owners for their loss. You know, it was unprecedented times. Never before had a government tried to shut down their economy.
According to your data, at least 612 businesses here in Seattle have taken in some incredible amounts of cash. We're talking loans between $1 million and $10 million for a total of $1.3 billion in forgiven large federal loans just in Seattle. Now, taxpayers are stuck footing the bill. Do you think the average taxpayer even knows about this?
So I think that's the purpose of education. For example, right there in Seattle, you had the category of business that we can all understand that received the most amount of this COVID aid PPP funding, and that was restaurants. They were literally closed down during the economic lockdowns. They were $300 million worth of forgiven PPP loans. But the number two category of businesses were lawyers. 164 law firms, they received $100 million worth of forgiven loans. I don't think Congress intended for white shoe professional firms to be dipping into that aid to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars just in the area of Seattle.
When you look at the data points you guys pulled down, a couple things really stood out to me in terms of businesses that received more or the most. First, the Seattle Times and subsidiaries received two loans totaling $11.8 million, and both loans in April of 2020 and April of 2021 were forgiven. Then there's Goodwill Industries here in Seattle. Now, I remember at the height of the COVID pandemic, the lines were about 2 hours long to drop off items because people were trying to shed things from their homes. There were people in line every single day. This is one of the largest single loans received of $10 million, all of it forgiven.
So specific to the Seattle Times, I mean, there was a red-hot news cycle during 2020. I mean, not only did you have the national pandemic that was raging, but right there in Seattle, you had the Capitol Hill occupied protest. And that was national news day after day for months. So the Seattle Times needs to justify their $11.8 million taxpayer subsidy. Why? Did they really need it, and why? And furthermore, there used to be a tradition in this country where the news media was independent of government. And there was a purpose for that. How can you be an independent journalist if you're subsidized by government? So on the editorial page of the Seattle Times, they need to answer these questions.
Adam, eye-opening information here, and we are just scratching the surface. Again, we appreciate you taking the time with us. Adam Andrzejewski with OpenTheBooks.com. Thanks so much, Adam.